This is Megan McFeely, and I'm sitting here with Alex Warden, and we're going to be having a series of conversations about how essential oneness expresses itself in all aspects of life. So, Alex, people are really talking about feminine consciousness, and I think there might be a little bit of confusion about what feminine consciousness is. Could you tell us? I know we've been in a place in our history as human beings, we've been in a place of feminine consciousness, then we moved into a place of masculine consciousness, and now we're moving into a place where these two are blended. Could you talk about what essential feminine consciousness is?
Today, we are developing a different kind of feminine consciousness, which is the consciousness of oneness, or relational consciousness that I call it. And what it means is that from having been differentiated and separated and kind of we reach a place of disconnectivity from the whole. So we're going back to the whole now by relating, by weaving things together, and by seeing what they have in common rather than what they have in difference. By doing that, you start to develop what is called relational consciousness, and it's a kind of feminine consciousness because everything becomes interconnected, and life and the essence of life and spirituality and everyday life, everything becomes interrelated and interconnected, and this is a major step in consciousness because it's bringing you back to the core of who we are, not just as humanity, but as a cosmos, as a person. Also is integrating us. We're not just like dreams are separate from our daily life, or spirit is separate from our daily life, or our daily doings are separate from when we go to work. Things starting to come together in our consciousness, and it's making us more of a whole. And that is what oneness is a state of wholeness.
So are there things that people can do to practice relational consciousness?
Yes, actually I've been working with that for over 20 years. For example, when you have a child naturally comes from a place of indifferentiation, and he's learning to differentiate. It's part of the process of education, for example, or growing up, to start differentiating. And once he goes to school, for example, he will learn differentiation, because the way schooling takes place in the Western world is through looking at differences among things rather than not necessarily about ways in which they are compatible or shared things in common. So naturally, this consciousness of separation is going to continue to develop. So what we can do is to start building from an early age very simple connections that we verbalize, so that they are made consciously between things. So if the child is talking about a cat, you can just mention that it's an animal, and an animal like dog is also an animal, or something simple like, oh, it's a living creature. We also are living creatures. We both breathe, we both eat. Start building simple connections, nothing too abstract. And in adults, it's a little bit more difficult because we have grown already for many years developing this differentiation, how things are different from each other, how things are special and unique, which is a true quality also of things and of life. So what we do in general is to start making very, very easy and simple connections among things. I wouldn't be doing the cat and the dog, or the cat and a human being, but I will try to build historical connections, put things within a context. I think that building context is really a way to develop a relational consciousness. The beauty about this practice is that the more you build conscious connections, it's like an activity that the brain somehow gets used to, or something happens on that level that at one point it starts working almost by itself. It builds enough connections, and you get used to making these connections consciously until it becomes almost an automatic way of perceiving. There is a second beauty about this kind of relational consciousness once we start developing it. And is that everything that you do in your life, every book that you read, or every important things that you have done and that you remember suddenly come out of you connected. So you have a much broader understanding of what is happening at any moment. There is a natural way in which you can go deeper into meaning, because in order to go to meaning, you have to be able to make certain connections. Either you work on a level that is intuitive and the connections are already synthesized inside you and they come out like that, straightforward. But if you don't have that intuitive perception in that moment, through relational consciousness, you can reach a place of meaning, a deeper meaning, because it's like veils of separation start getting diluted and they allow to see what is beneath, and what is beneath is interconnectedness.
So this is a big problem for us now. In Western culture, we're disconnected, and so we have a lot of grief and anxiety. And so if we address this issue, our disconnectedness and our meaninglessness we feel, can we deal with this through creating these connections and this relational consciousness in the way that you speak of?
I don't know if there's a solution to every single problem that exists in relational consciousness, but what it does help, because it brings a new relationship to you and the world, to me and the world, because it brings a more natural awareness of what is beneath the veil of separateness, because you're closer to essence. It's like the more the veils fall, the closer you are to essence. So you're going to continue being sad sometimes. You're going to continue having problems in life. You're going to continue having an argument with the butcher because it didn't bring you the kind of meat that you wanted to buy. It's also going to be bringing you a problem. People are going to call you on the phone and it's going to be a wrong number. Everything will continue happening. Life will continue happening. And because we're part of life, we're going to continue experiencing many things that we experience normally in life. The difference is that there is a larger space that can hold you. There is a larger space that you can go and to find a meaning to what is happening. There is a larger space in which you can actually start accepting yourself, accepting life, because you see that what is happening is not an isolated event, but actually relates to other things. So because you put it in context, it actually reduces, in a way, the anxiety, because you know that what you're living, whether you like it or not, is part of something else. At the same time, there are some things that happen out of the blue. There are some events that just appear, and apparently they do not have a natural connection. It's not something that was weaved by cause and effect that are visible to us. But even if that happens because it's an expression of life. So there is a connection. Life itself is the connection. So the sense of loneliness, at least in me, has decreased quite substantially, because I experience my life of being part of a larger fabric of life. And I think that brings a definitely sense of belonging and a sense of life, a deeper meaning of life, and a deeper meaning in terms of how I feel that I belong to life and I belong to the fabric of everything.